Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cyber Pro podcast. This is Rick Mishka. We are super excited to have a repeat offender in a good way back on the Cyber Pro podcast. It is Jax Scott. She was with us in September of 2021. So more than 2 years ago. Your episode number 125. You are a top 5 impression and view getter. So we're super excited to have you back. Army veteran like myself, business owner, cyber guru. Jax, thanks so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast again.
Rick, I'm excited. 5? Wow, that's impressive. I had no idea. Who was number one?
So number one was actually somebody from Microsoft, and it was another female practitioner. Ash was her name. It was phenomenal. So
That's amazing. That's awesome. I'm excited to be here.
That's great. So let's kick us off. What have you been up to since the last time, September of 2021, you were on the Cyber Pro podcast?
I feel like I've lived so many lives by then. I'm not kidding you. So I was in 2021, I was doing CMMC and I was running my own firm at the time. I had just gotten laid off just a few months prior. So I was in this really interesting place in my life. I look back in hindsight, it was the best thing that happened to me because it got me to where I'm at today. So through that phase of going through CMMC, everything kind of imploded with the government and the whole CMMC process. I then landed at a consulting firm called Grant Thornton, and I started doing federal consulting in that space where I'm at now, which we got acquired, but that's where I'm at now. And I will tell you, anybody that's ever worked in the world of consulting and cybersecurity, you are 5x going to up level your skills in consulting because of how busy you are. So that's where I'm at today as far as my career and everything.
And the CMMC final rule is supposed to be released in the next week. It's been so much time in the coming. So
long. I'm so excited though. But yeah, everything's been crazy the last 2 years. It's been awesome.
That's great. So how has the cybersecurity landscape really evolved over those past few years?
Well, let's talk about AI. I mean, didn't that just come out in November of last year, almost a year ago? It was out before that, just to be clear. But when it really, ChatGPT, OpenAI came out, I believe the announcement or the big movement was November of last year. And that really changed our threatscape in so many different ways. I think that has been one of our biggest disruptors just within the last year is AI, hugely. And I think what we're going to see going into, could be totally wrong, this will be my projection, but I think as we go into the big conferences next year, we're going to see ways of auditing AI and how to protect against generative AI. Because right now, what we're seeing is everybody's blocking it. A lot of organizations are just we're just going to block it because we don't know how to deal with it. But I think what we're going to see in 2024 is a lot of ways of how to protect ourselves now, because we can't block it forever. It's going to eventually, there's going to be vulnerabilities. We're going to be impacted.
It's true. And it's interesting. So I'm getting my doctorate in cyber psychology, and
yay!
I know it's crazy. I talk to people about this 1 month after ChatGPT was released in the wild. Turnitin had actually used ChatGPT to identify when students were using AI to write a paper.
What?
Yeah. They were like, no, this has to be fixed, because you think about it, just like cybersecurity, the bad actors within a month were automatically using it to code script, right? So the Turnitin solution, which was already being used for plagiarism, they'd created using AI a way to identify AI written documents. So I think you're on.
No. Okay. So you're in school now. So, because when I was in school, I just graduated my master's May of this year. They had not developed that. But you're saying just within the last few months, since May, they've already come out with Turnitin, and they've already figured out a way of leveraging AI to identify when students are using AI. That's really impressive.
Yeah. I think I heard it's about 80 to 90% accurate. So, not foolproof like anything, but yeah. I plan on writing a bunch of publications, so I'm going to be peer reviewed, and so I don't have to worry about that being an issue for me. Plagiarism is not in my view. So
that's interesting.
Congrats on your master's in May. That's cool.
Thank you. Super.
So besides artificial intelligence, are there any emerging trends or technologies or even approaches that just gets you super excited?
So I work primarily, like I said, in the federal space, helping organizations with creating a better secure cybersecurity environment. And I do that by helping them assess their current baseline, and then from that, help them develop certain governance frameworks. Those governance frameworks could include establishing vulnerability and patch management within their environment. So what gets me lit up, because I'm such a nerd, is CSF, the Cybersecurity Framework from NIST. It's a really, what I love about it, and the more that I've been fortunate that I've actually been able to do this assessment with clients, and I've got to see it from start to finish. And then not really finish, because you're like always working with a client after assessment, but working with it, I like it because it is not a compliance required framework, and any organization can utilize it. And I will tell you, I just did a follow-up assessment. So we've been in the client's environment for a little over a year. It started with them August of last year. I was able to assess their environment in probably about 4 or 5 hours. So I sat down, I knocked out a full CSF assessment within 4 to 5 hours. That's what I love about it. It's not overly complicated and complex, but then it'll provide you a numeric value and show you between a 1 and a 5 where you are on the scale, as far as if you're a completely optimized environment or if you're not, and what those gaps would look like. So I love it. I'm a nerd. I think it's amazing. I think everybody that doesn't require to have a compliance framework, use the NIST CSF.
I agree. I use the NIST CSF. We also interlaced that with the cyber defense matrix. So that way we could correlate a few things. So if you haven't played with that, you should.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah. And that, you brought up a good point. And you've seen the CSF is so moldable, and you can do crosswalks into it. With we did a privacy crosswalk. You can use other frameworks to mold into and even create controls within the CSF. It's awesome.
So Jax, I'm really curious. You mentioned something about governance and compliance. And I think a lot of people think of those things, as one and the same. But do you?
No. Governance, risk, compliance. I actually talked about this in a class recently. Those are in order for a reason. Governance is all about the policies and procedures, the processes within the organization. So you have to establish those. You need to get those going. Risk is understanding the risk within your environment, and that ties into risk appetite, risk tolerance, and understanding what you're going to have predisposing conditions that are going to create a certain risk environments if you have highly sensitive data. And then compliance are the other factors, such as law, legal regulations, HIPAA, PCI, just simple regulations for privacy. So they all work synergistically together, and you have to have each of one of those things. And I think that's where GRC, people will say it's not technical, but there are technical aspects to it. You do have to understand certain controls, certain system infrastructure to be able to understand how all of it works together, in my opinion.
No, I love it. And thank you for just kind of breaking that down so easily. Here's the final fun question for you. What's your current piece of technology that you just can't live without?
Oh, yeah, that's so easy. So I have a smart home, and I won't tell you which app that I use, but I use the one that I can literally tell it anything. I love, because I don't know how much I want to tell that I can do in my house, but I can change the temperature at any time. So for example, if I'm in bed and it's really hot, I like to sleep when I love it really cold in my room. I can just tell my little assistant to turn the temperature down to 65 degrees. It's awesome.
I feel like this
Can't live it out.
We are in the life of what clap it. Remember the clap on?
Yes, I do.
We're in that with our voices and AI now. So this is super cool. So Jax, thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast again.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I look forward to coming back in 2 years or something. We'll see.
Thank you for tuning into the Cyber Pro podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and all of our cool bonus content.